Brought to you by Moonbeam Multimedia.
This is 16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm good. How was prom?
So good.
Well, I should ask, how was it from your perspective? Because I was also there.
It was good.
I was one of the chaperones at Katie's high school prom. Well, not so much chaperone. I was there to take pictures. I didn't have to yell at anybody because the kids were perfectly well behaved.
Thank you.
They were just almost aggressively chill. They weren't even too wild in their dancing. They were just sort of like, yeah, we're here.
They were having fun.
It's like, okay.
It was good. It was a good time.
Yeah.
A couple of my coworkers are in charge. They do a great job, so.
I feel like prom kicks off the sprint toward graduation that is your end of school year.
Yeah.
It's like the first of all the final events. Are you feeling ready to put this year to rest?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been a good year. I've had a good group. I'm looking at some changes for next year, which is exciting.
Yeah.
To do some other stuff and to kind of force yourself out of the comfort of what I always do.
Mm-hmm.
I've been teaching Accelerated English 10 for the last 12 years. Mm-hmm. And next year I'm not teaching it. And so that's, it's a weird feeling.
That is going to be weird.
But it's good. It's good. I'm teaching other groups of 10th graders and I'm good with that.
I'm happy for your professional growth.
Thanks.
Yes.
Me too. It's good to change and that's just kind of how it happens sometimes, you know? But now all we have left is a million senior events and then it'll be over.
Finally.
You know?
You can sleep.
Got to get through senior finals and then underclassmen finals and then we're almost there.
Okay. Well, the end is in sight.
You know, as you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you realize that the light is actually the train the whole time because then it's just like all of the things you have to do are just getting much, much closer. So that's all.
Okay. Just a couple items before we get into it. We want to give a huge thank you to Vivian Van Gelder and the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. We talked with Vivian in our last episode. If you haven't happened to listen to that one yet, please consider it. She's a wonderful researcher, just extremely well-versed in educational policy and reform and the particulars of Seattle Public Schools, that district. She was just knew kind of everything about it. It was,
but her scope of like U.S. education was really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, she was,
Yeah. It was just a fascinating and dense conversation. I don't know.
We could have talked to her forever.
Yeah, I was captivated. So it was a really good episode. A lot of good lessons learned.
You don't need to be familiar or know anything about Seattle to enjoy that conversation and to appreciate just the conversation about education at large as well. So
definitely. Second thing, there are only 2 more episodes left after this one before we are going to go on a brief summer break. Our next episode, we're going to have a conversation with a local student-led journalism initiative called the Reporting Project. They are based just down the road from us at Denison University in Granville, Ohio. We talked with them about local journalism and the sort of impact on the community and the services they provide to people and why that initiative and the work that they're doing is so important and needed right now. We had a great time talking with them. So that's coming up. And then our annual year in review episode is going to be the last one. We've been continuously publishing episodes for the most part every other week for about 5 years without a break. And this is not indicative that we're going away or anything. We just decided to switch to a seasonal format so we can give ourselves a little bit of a break and have some time where we're focusing on planning and season arcs and things like that more than just kind of like flying as fast as we can, getting new episodes out every other week. So we'll be back in, I think it's September, early September with our first episode. Basically, we follow a school year here in the United States. We want to encourage you to sign up for the 16 to 1 podcast email newsletter. That's where you're going to get all the updates we have, episode announcements, resources. We have workshop offerings coming up from Moonbeam Multimedia. And then also, if there's a story in your local educational community that you would like us to cover, we would love to hear about it for the show. Encourage you to reach out, contact us using our website, or write to us, hello@16to1.com.
I feel like it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. We've been doing so many things. We are going to talk about some important stories that have gotten a little bit lost in the let's call it the evolving civic situation in the U.S.
I like that.
So we're going to go outside of the U.S. Why don't you kick us off with what's been going on in Nepal? Yes.
Okay. So a couple weeks ago, a month-long national teacher strike in Nepal finally ended. The country's congressional, education, and health leaders all agreed to pass a key education reform bill by June 29th of this year. The strike suspension comes after weeks of demonstrations in which dozens of teachers were injured after clashing with police over reforms to teacher compensation, sick leave, grading systems, and more. The school education bill is designed to replace legislation from 1971 with a system more oriented toward devolved local control, reforms directed by the Constitution of Nepal, which went into effect in 2015. Since the Constitution was adopted, teachers have been urging the government to enact the school education bill, and have, of course, been arguing over the particulars and adding amendments to that bill, feeling that the government has been dragging its feet, and so they finally took a stand.
Yeah. This 2015 Constitution this is not the first.
Right.
There was a provisional Constitution before that. This one replaced that. But from what I could gather, the Constitution essentially directed the government to, it's one of these situations of like, do this as quickly as you can.
Just get through it.
But this like open-ended directive to the government to establish a system of provincial and local management of the national school system in Nepal. Teachers were very much feeling urgency, such that these protests, a lot of them they had all kinds of like physical altercations and violence and clashes, and a month-long strike. This story and some of the conversations that we had last week with Vivian have really gotten me thinking about what the appropriate pace of change in education reform is. There's a lot to be said for taking our time. I think Vivian even mentioned this like move fast, break things ethos, the like startup ethos of just try something and see what happens, and how that can be dangerous for school systems because the stakes are so high. The education,
the things you're breaking are not.
Yeah, you're human beings is what you're breaking in that case. So the stakes being high, you feel like you want to take your time with education reform. You don't want to make rash, trendy decisions, but I do wonder if the information age hasn't necessitated speeding up education reform. Reform movements very broadly construed. I'm not talking about any one reform movement, but just trying new things to better serve our students now. That's what I mean by education reform. This urgency makes sense to me, I guess I will just say, from these teachers.
Oh, absolutely.
So
can't keep waiting on something.
Yeah. I don't know what the right answer is there. Like, at what point do you say, we've had enough, it's time to move on and try something that might suit us better?
Yeah. So keep an eye on Nepal.
Yeah, I will say, I think that there could be further complications if they do not follow through on this pledge to pass the reform bill by June 29th. That reform bill has already gone through several iterations. I think the teachers' unions were not approved, like they didn't approve the first draft of it. So anyway, curious to follow that story and see whether they make the deadline.
Okay, what else we got?
Well, here in the U.S., you might have heard teachers talking about this. The Trump administration has recently become interested in directing our school systems to, with all due haste, start implementing teaching related to artificial intelligence in schools. And
incorporating it, like the intentional.
Incorporating AI learning and tools into K-12 classrooms. This kind of got me thinking, and I wanted to check in on AI implementation in not the U.S. education system. So I went hunting to see if there were other examples of where the national government is directing its education system to integrate AI both rapidly and kind of aggressively. This was a pretty interesting exercise, and one that told me that Google is pretty much dead to me as a search engine, because it was just really not helpful as a research tool to this particular question. I could not begin to speculate why that was. I was searching for China and directives from China's education entities. What I found in all of this, there's recent chatter about it because there's like this strategic plan that they've released, the 2035 master plan, basically, for the government. There's this school reform component to it. So just for a bit of context, back as early as 2017, China's state government was outlining plans to develop AI tools for use in K-12, and that includes primary and middle school. For reference, ChatGPT went into public research preview in November of 2022. That's how long the American public has kind of understood what this crop of AI tools looks like. So China's been working on all of these reforms aligned to this 2024 to 2035 master plan. And it directs AI adoption across primary and secondary schools as well as higher education institutions in China. This is the same plan that says that the primary task, I'll just read it to you. This is from a translation of this document, so take it with a grain of salt. It might not be 100% accurate.
The translation is as close as we can make it.
Yeah. Make the study and implementation of Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era the primary task. And weave this primary task into pretty much everything you do. So, like, this is the first and most important part of this education plan, according to this plan itself. There's a lot of energy behind this right now in China due to the success of DeepSeek. It's this AI company and product in China. They develop large language models, so sort of competitors to ChatGPT. They do it at significantly lower cost compared to competing models made by companies in the US.
I had never heard of DeepSeek until I started researching this article.
Yeah, I very much had heard of DeepSeek, and it's because they made the bottom fall out of the AI chips market. What they did was so much cheaper. It's some fraction of the cost of training a model like what ChatGPT had been using.
Yeah.
That everyone was like, oh God, what is all this investment that we've been pouring into?
When we don't need to. Like, we're over-investing?
The computing power for AI. Yeah. So, and then I just want to throw in too, like, China isn't the only country that's working on implementing AI at the national level. You found this story about Estonia. They recently announced a partnership with OpenAI to integrate a custom version of ChatGPT. It's built for schools. They're going to integrate it into the country's secondary school system. At least they're not giving it to elementary schoolers.
Yeah, I think building it into... I'm very interested in what Estonia is doing, so I'm going to keep up with that.
Okay.
Because I'm very fascinated in what type of AI experience they're going to have.
Me too. ChatGPT EDU, I think it was called. But they're going to be the first country that's decided to integrate ChatGPT into its education system. We've had a lot of discussion about AI on this show, and I feel like I'm finally now getting to the questions that matter most to me about it, and some of these stories are helping me do that. Here's what I'm wondering. A lot of these pushes to integrate AI into schools, they always claim that AI is going to help personalize learning. I feel like that's a claim that really needs to be interrogated more. What does that mean? What does personalizing education really look like? Do we agree that it requires more attention or attention at all from a person? Like, does a human being maybe have to have something to do with the equation of personalizing education? I think that's my one question.
That's fair.
What do you think personalizing education means as a teacher, classroom teacher?
With AI or
No. Remove AI from the equation for a second. What does personalizing education mean to you?
I would say that one way that education is personalized is by giving students choices in their learning, whether that be how they complete an assignment or what a project look like or what type of topics they get to pick.
So students exercising
choice,
agency and choice.
Whatever. But within the constraints of, you know what I mean?
Do you trust
pre-existing something?
Yeah. Well, that's the operative part. Do you trust? You're going to have to base this answer on your experience with current AI tools. This is not to say that AI tools aren't going to get a lot better, but the current crop of AI tools, as you've used them, would you trust them to be tools that could put bumpers around the learning of teenagers?
No.
Yeah.
In the state of Ohio, we have to meet every year with an administrator who's in charge of our rating for the year that we earn as a teacher. I have a meeting tomorrow morning with my administrator who oversees my rating for the year. And one of the questions we're going to talk about is the assignment that he saw was my students presenting a college research or a work research project. Some of the stats and the figures and things like that my students were sharing in front of him were just like flat out wrong. One of the questions that we're going to be talking about tomorrow is how do we teach kids to confirm information based on whatever Google tells you automatically?
Yeah. Adults can't do this right now. Adults can't do this. And we're expecting teenagers to do this.
Like, my administrator and I can sit and listen to a presentation and be like, there's no way that's the case.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's actually really fascinating that we're having this conversation the day before I'm about to have a follow-up on an observation. Where this is part of the conversation is to say, how do we train our students to better discern data and information from AI or whatever?
I want to talk more about this impact on the school system specifically. It's making homework like a non-entity, because how can you ever trust that anything that you send to be done at home is going to be done with their own brain?
It won't be.
It's impacting the way you have to teach information literacy, which is exactly what you're just talking about. We've got like deep fakes and AI slop taking over the traditional search engine. I want to call it an unfortunate byproduct, but perhaps this is baked into the design. We have an attack on information itself and information literacy. Teachers are having to adapt to this new reality just like everybody else. And I don't understand how you are to expect your students to find any anchor, especially when all the adults in the room can't.
Oh, I've gone back to everything is paper and pencil.
Yeah.
And things only get done in my room. Some projects don't leave my room. That's been the only way I've been able to combat some of it.
Let me back up. I want to frame it in terms of the China story. My question about this is, what could possibly go wrong if you put history's most sophisticated and convincing, but also lying and hallucinating guessing machine in front of children who are just learning to read, let alone have information literacy? They're not going to have fully developed prefrontal cortexes for at least another decade or two, right? And we think that it's a good idea. And my question is, why do we think it's a good idea? And every time I ask people this, the response is, well, we cannot bury our heads in the sand and pretend like it doesn't exist because this is not going away. And if we don't embrace it, we're going to fall behind. And I just want to ask, like, fall behind at what? Fall behind doing what? What you were just saying, you have to already know. You have to already know that the facts that you're looking at aren't correct.
And they don't.
Right. AI is very useful to people in the room who already have extreme expertise in whatever it is they're seeking to do. Why do we think this is a good idea? Have we asked ourselves that question enough and intently enough yet before we start cramming AI into everything? And it's like kind of like the new social media. I think that AI tools are going to do to students' critical thinking what social media has done to their attentive skills. Let's jump to our last story. What are we talking about?
Okay.
Back in the U.S., an uplifting thing for once.
Got some teacher updates.
Yeah.
The National Teacher of the Year was named. Her name is Ashley Crossan. She is an English teacher and journalism advisor at Mifflin County High School in Lewistown, Pennsylvania. She's been teaching for 14 years. She's a Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms Fellow, and she was the Pennsylvania State Teacher of the Year in 2024. Ashley is proof that I've never had a unique experience in my life, because as Chelsea and I were researching her, we found out that I am very similar to her, and we are similar to each other. So, Ashley, if for some reason you were to hear this and you would like to meet maybe your left arm, it might be me. Anyways.
Okay.
Moving on.
So there's a really fun CBS Mornings interview. We'll share it in the show notes. And she was emphasizing the importance of like authenticity and helping students find themselves.
As I was researching this yesterday, and Chelsea and I were laughing so hard about how similar we are, I just kept saying that I'm like the Temu version of Ashley Crossan. Or Great Value brand Ashley Crossan, because we share a lot of the same
interests.
Courses, interests. I mean, she does the school newspaper, the magazine, and so anyways.
Y'all could be friends. Ashley, if you hear this,
might be the
you
same
might have
person.
a friend in Ohio. Congrats to Ashley, 2025 Teacher of the
awesome.
Year. Yeah, that's a big honor.
Part of the role now, after you've won something like Teacher of the Year, you spend that year following the year or of the year.
You got to make the rounds.
Doing a bunch of work.
The circuit.
You like become an ambassador, basically, the educators. And so if you're interested in seeing Ashley speak somewhere or in reaching out to her, we've included a link to her in our show notes so you can read more about Ashley Crossan.
Yeah.
So, one last thing I want to mention. This is a throwback to episode 50. And our dear friend, Risha Allen. Risha was recently named the Ward County Teacher of the Year, North Dakota. She is still teaching elementary music classes, and it's just absolute magic. And her TikTok is at rishdishfish. Congratulations to Risha for your County Teacher Award.
Congrats, Risha. All right, we ready for fill in the blank? This is the part of the show where we ask you trivia questions. You write in to us our email address, hello@16to1.com, if you got the right answer. Or even if you don't, we'll send you some stickers.
Just send us a note.
Stickers, yeah, just say hi. We like to hear from you.
Okay, this is from I don't know when.
I think this is the episode before Vivian.
This was right after the Masters. So the question was, following Rory McIlroy's win, how many people total now have completed the Golf Grand Slam, which is when you've won the Masters, the PGA, the US Open, and the Open Championship. And now Rory makes 6. 6 people have won all of those tournaments in their career.
Okay.
So pretty impressive.
All right.
Amongst those 6, Jack Nicklaus, a proud Ohioan, the Golden Bear. So what do you have? This episode's question.
Oh, well, you may have heard there was some activity in the Vatican recently.
Harry Styles was there.
Oh.
Is that what you meant?
That's not what I meant.
Oh, I heard he was
Go
there.
figure. No, I was talking about the election of the new pope. So we have, at what age do cardinals no longer vote on who will be the new pope?
Yeah. I didn't know they
In
had
conclave.
a limit.
Yeah, I didn't know there was an age limit in conclave.
Okay, last thing,
Yes.
what we learned.
Can I go first this time?
I would love for you to go first.
Okay, so I have been learning how to set myself up for sustained creative work, setting aside time to work on my creative pursuits. I like to write and make music and do stuff like that, but I don't do it as habitually as I should because it turns out that stuff is pretty important to my mental health. So I've been learning from some creative writing resources. We're in a Discord and some friends of ours are in there, and there's a channel dedicated to writing for those who want to participate. We have brainstorming sessions and swap resources and ask each other questions and try to help each other when we have writer's block and stuff like that. That social component, I think, is important to my creative process. And then I've also learned one other tip that works for me is that setting timers on my social apps is healthy, let's just say. As soon as I set timers, I started thinking about time differently. That time I'm now spending doing other things. If I can make the other thing a creative pursuit, then that's what I spend my spare time thinking about and not whatever I was doing when I was doom scrolling. What about you? What did you learn in the last couple of weeks?
I am traveling to Poland this summer.
Uh-huh.
I was chosen to participate in the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation trip this year.
Congratulations. I am so proud of you.
Thank you. I have known about this for quite some time, and I'm just now saying it on here, but I'm really excited. I've not been to Poland. I feel very fortunate that I was chosen. And I'll go ahead and say that some of the reason for our summer break is because of my fellowship schedule is really off the charts this summer. So, part of this program for the foundation, I attend monthly lectures. And the lecture that I joined recently, part of the learning was about the different dialects of Yiddish. I shared last episode that I was learning Polish. Mm-hmm. And so that's a little bit more useful for where I'll be traveling, although Yiddish probably would be useful as well.
How much Yiddish do you speak?
None.
But
it was really interesting to learn about the dialects, which dialects bring in other languages to create their versions, like Greek or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to learn about all of the Yiddish dialects, the communities and the history of speaking Yiddish, and still trying to learn Polish a little bit at a time. So I'll probably not join the Yiddish group learning anytime soon, but interesting to know.
I'm looking forward to that opportunity for you. I hope you have a great time this summer. Yeah.
Me too. If anybody has any recommendations for places around Warsaw, I'll be there for part of the time and just studying. Mostly I'll be at the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum. So that'll be the heart of my trip, but hopefully I can squeak in some other things just to kind of sample the culture and see some other stuff. So I'm excited for it, and I will update when we return. So,
all right. Anything else for the week?
Can I just say hi to a listener?
Sure.
Kerrigan, one of our favorite youngest listeners. So Kerrigan, hope you're doing well. Miss you guys. Have a great end of the school year, and keep doing your homework.
Thanks for listening.
See you all next time.
Bye. Hey listeners, thanks for supporting 16 to 1. We're your co-hosts. I'm Chelsea Adams.
And I'm Katie Day. Find our show notes, archives, and resources, sign up for our newsletter, or get in touch with us via the contact form at 16to1.com, all spelled out.
We are so grateful for our listener support. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the show and telling your friends or colleagues about it.
The show is edited and produced by you, Chelsea Adams, and you're also responsible for our show's music.
And you, Katie Day, serve as lead researcher and social media manager.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next show. This is called a fill-in-the-blank episode.
Listen,
We're going to give you 3 keywords, and we just want you to learn.
Yeah, no, just ChatGPT it. It's fine.